everyone, I'm Becky.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're doing Bickering Book Reviews. Today we're talking about 27 Hours by Tristina Wright. And this book takes place in the distant future where humans have migrated across the universe. Actually, I have a question about that. However, their existence is not peaceful. Their new home is filled with an enemy known as gargoyles.
Or chimeras, depending on who you're talking to.
Rumor Mora is trained from a young age to kill the enemy, but his life becomes complicated when he begins to fall in love with a boy who spent his whole life protecting the creatures. Joined by new friends, Rumor must find a way to protect their human settlements.
And this is a multiple perspective, so it doesn't just focus on Rumor, it does focus on
there's
like 4 other perspectives.
Right. But
because there's a total of 5 perspectives.
There's a lot of characters in this book. So
many that you would think that maybe there's a checklist somewhere of the quilt bag identities, and every time somebody hits one of those, a check mark goes next to it.
Yeah, this book is a very interesting premise, and one of the questions I had was they keep talking about like they came across on a generation ship, which would mean it would take hundreds of years. But then they kept saying the moon, like they're on the moon.
Yeah, that did confuse me at certain points because I had to then kind of remind myself, no, it's not our moon.
It's got to be a different moon.
A different moon, I think, because the way they describe it and the way the sun's work and just
it's got to be a different moon. So,
well, and then there's like that strong focus on science, but then there's also what appears to be kind of a magical layer to it too. I mean, the different abilities and things that characters have.
Because Nyx could listen to the moon, could like hear the moon. So this is it's a really interesting premise, and I love the fact that it's an LGBTQ fantasy science fiction book. Because those don't exist.
Yeah, you don't see those.
Those don't exist. I love that. So I applaud her for putting that out in the world.
And you more than likely will see a reflection of if you have a queer identity, you will more than likely see a reflection of yourself in this book, which is important because I don't think that we see that enough in this genre.
I feel like she particularly hit on things like transgendered and asexuality that is never in fantasy books. Fantasy science fiction. I would call it science fiction. Other people would call it fantasy. However, my big issue with it is I feel like I don't know these characters beyond their sexual preferences.
I mean, I agree. But it also, like, it doesn't come across realistic either, though, because all of the characters fall in the quilt bag. None of them are heterosexual. Not that I'm asking for a heterosexual science fiction novel, but it just doesn't seem realistic in that then also the characters are kind of discussing their kind of navigation of coming out and defining themselves, and it seems like in a world where, you know, having a queer identity is of the norm, why would there be a focus on coming out or finding that identity?
Well, and I feel like because there's so many things going on, it took away from the story. I would have actually really liked a book about Rumor and Jude. And maybe, because this is going to be a series, and you know how sometimes you'll have series where you have like 6 characters interact, but like the first person that comes to mind that does this is Abby Glines, but a lot of them do it. Where like this book is these 2 people's stories, and then this book is these 2 people's stories, and this book is these 2 people's stories. I think that format would have worked better with this.
I agree, because I was compelled by Braden. I thought he was funny and interesting.
He was.
And I would have liked to see more like with Braden and the forest people and Trick and everything.
That's another asexual character, and I think that she dealt with asexuality better than some of the other books, because there's been a lot of asexual books for us the last couple of weeks. But I feel like she dealt with it better than a lot of other books, but I don't feel like I cared because Braden wasn't developed that well, but he was a funny character. And I think Rumor has the potential to be like a dashing, wonderful leading man, but he just didn't get there. And Jude had this, like, there was a sweetness there that I don't think was ever, between the 2 of them, that was ever completely developed because there was so much stuff going on.
Well, and I think there was so much good stuff going on in the plot, but the other issue kind of was that everything was told to the reader, that there wasn't kind of the finesse that the reader kind of uncovers it themselves.
There's no world building.
They were told this, or they were told that kind of this aspect of the plot parallels with this going on in our culture today, like contemporary times. And so it wasn't like kind of guiding the reader into believing, or like feeling these things and seeing these things and working through the plot and working through the story. It was more just like, this is the story, this is what we're doing.
Right, and I feel like there's a couple different love stories going on here too, and Rumor and Jude had definitely a case of insta-love, and I think I'm okay with that because of the interaction, but it's a long book for everything to feel rushed.
Yeah, it did feel rushed.
And
it did feel rushed in that, like, and it felt like, it felt rushed, but it also felt like 2 books in one, because you get, like, halfway through, and it seems like everything's okay. There's a stopping, like a point where you could have kind of ended the book,
right.
and then gone to a different book.
Should we rate it, or?
Yeah, let's rate. I don't even know where I'm going to fall with this one. So, to be honest, I just recently finished this book, and I'm still kind of coming to terms, like, with how I interacted with it.
And I guess we should probably also say, this was a BEA book. I stood in a line for quite a while to get this book.
Well, I really wanted to read it. I think it's important. Even with any of the issues that I have with it, I still think it's important. I'm so glad that it's out there, and I'm still glad that it's getting the press that it's getting.
Because I feel like somewhere there is a 15-year-old homosexual boy who wants to read a science fiction book that he can see himself in, and it did not exist.
Or a 15-year-old transgender girl, or a 15-year-old asexual person. I mean, like, yeah, it's there.
Okay, so we're just going to rate it. So our rating scale is unicorns to horses, and it starts up with 5 unicorns, goes down to 2 unicorns. If we don't like it, it gets a horse. A horse, because it's not cool like a unicorn. I'm going with 3. I think it's an important book. I think that it's an interesting concept, but character development and world building were not there for me.
So I'm going with a 3. I think I personally didn't like it. I think I would have given it a 2, but I think that I want to encourage more books like this.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important. So I'm going to give it a 3 because I will continue to read these books. I will continue to seek them out. And I may even consider reading the rest of the series just because I do want to encourage this type of writing.
I would probably keep reading the series, yes. And that is where we are in 27 Hours by Tristina Wright.
All right, so see you around.
Bye.